Okay, so I'm gonna start by showing you a little bit of my file structure. I'm keeping I can always keep reference images in the images folder. I maybe have already gone over this, but I keep them. Images in the source images folder are the ones that end up in render. Okay, so that's how I differentiate between those two folders. And then my scenes folder, I keep my Maya files. Now, the way I've got this set up currently is I've got the Swan rig file, and the Swan model file is referenced into the Swan rig file. So if I were to open the Swan model file and alter it in any way, then the Swan rig file will get that update automatically. So let me show you how that works inside of Maya. So if I set my project appropriately, and okay, and then I go to File, Open, and I open my Swan rig file. Don't need to save that. Give it a second. Okay, so here's my Swan rig file, and my Swan model is in there, but only by reference. So if I go to File, Reference Editor, you can see there's my Swan model reference. Okay. If I wanted to add more references, I could just click on this Create Reference button, or I could remove a reference this way, or I could duplicate a reference if I wanted two Swan models in this file, so on and so forth. It all should be pretty self-explanatory. The only thing that I should point out while I've got this up is if you go to Reference, Reload, then this is going to pull in updates to the file. So updates that happen to the model file, I should say. Now, if you close Maya and reopen this, well, if I close this particular Swan rig file and then reopen it, then this is automatically going to happen. When I reload, it's going to use the latest version of the model file. Now, the reason I wanted to point this out is if for some reason you want to bring in you want to reference in a totally different file, let's say, but you want that to be a replacement for this file. So a common workflow would be in a production to have as soon as the modeling team is done with the model file, it would be the riggers could get started, and they would reference in the model file into their rig file, and then they could start rigging. But then the texture team could update the texture or a shader file. Sometimes it's usually what it's called, materials file. You could swap out this model file for the shader file reference. And so I know this is maybe get a little bit confusing, but basically the materials or shader file version of the file would reference in this model file, and then the rig file would reference in the shader material file. And then you would still have the model, but you would have the model plus textures. So if that was the case, I know this is a long explanation, but it's kind of important to understand. If that was the case, then you would want to select this particular reference and go to Reference and Replace Reference. And then you could select like the shader material version of this file in place of the model file, and it should take all of your changes into account. Sometimes you have to close down, you have to reopen the file after you've done that. So you'll have to save it. Well, save as. You always want to save as when you're messing with those. But then sometimes it doesn't like it initially, so you'd have to close that file and then reopen it. but you shouldn't have to do that. Okay, so that's about everything there is to know about references. I mean, you could lock it if you don't want anybody to be able to tinker with it. But anyway, that's the reference editor. Very powerful, very useful tool. Okay, so here's my Swan file. And I added controls to these joints, just like we had already done in previous tutorials by parenting the shape node. So now all I'm going to try to get done today is adding in the rest of the joints to the bird and see if I can't get those oriented and get the rotation orders set correctly. Okay, so getting started on that portion, I guess I might as well start a new video. So